Hello, 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 everyone out there joining us for MCU ATL's Beam stream. Beam standing for Broadcast Examination of Art and Media. Thank you guys for tuning in today, and thank you to all you guys that will be catching us on the rewatch. I am Leonard, and I am here with Unit 1218. We've got Kelly, we've got Mo. We've got Cap, Jason, and we've got Darius.
Greetings from Asbury Park.
So we've got a lot to talk about today. We've got two episodes. We're going to go over episode 8 and episode 9, which is the finale of this wonderful show, WandaVision. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and kick it to Mo for the recap of episode 8.
Awesome. Thank you very much. This particular episode is what we like to call, the exposition dump. And then for its comic book heads, it's the secret origins. So this episode starts off basically where the cliffhanger left off, where we find out that Agnes isn't everything she said she was. She's actually Agatha Harkness. And she has basically Wanda kept prisoner in her basement, and so she is trying to basically get Wanda to explain or to tell her how she was able to create this virtual world that she did all on her own. And she explains how she was drawn when she felt all this magic power and all of these spells cast at once in her mind, that they were all cast at once. She actually came into the hex to basically try to see if she can figure out where it came from. To her surprise, Wanda has no clue. She's like, I don't know how this is happening. I don't know, I don't have full control of this. And so Agatha then reveals a couple of things. Actually, as Wanda is trying to tell her she doesn't know anything, she tries to use her powers. Come to find out, Agatha has put runes up in the room to basically nullify her powers. So Agatha's the only one who can use powers while in the room. And so she's beginning to grill Wanda, trying to see if she can get information from her. And so she resolves to say, hey, let's go ahead and actually just take a trip through memory lane. Let's see if we can piece together where it's coming from. Almost working as if she were almost like her therapist, almost helping her work through her grief. So the first thing is she goes over, they visit Wanda's very early past, when she was a child, and the incidences that were hinted at in Age of Ultron, when we get to see Wanda as a little girl growing up with her parents and her brother, how she was a huge fan of American sitcoms, especially the Dick Van Dyke Show. And they're watching this episode, and in the midst of watching this episode, their place gets bombed. There's a Tony Stark or a Stark Industries bomb that lands in their apartment. Her parents get killed, but her and her brother survive. And while they're in there, the bomb that has landed in their apartment complex actually has not, or in their apartment has not gone off. It's just beeping, doesn't go off. So at first they're trying to debate whether or not they need to escape or don't escape. Wanda tries to reach out for the bomb. She gets pulled out of her memory, and Agatha explains to her that at that moment she had used a probability spell. Unbeknownst to young Wanda, it was something that she didn't know she was doing. It was inert, and she basically was able to work the probability where that bomb would not have gone off. In Wanda's mind, they were stuck there for 2 days, and she had no idea that she had done anything. So that was the first scene. Then the next is actually she takes her a little further into her life after Wanda has joined Hydra and joined their experiments with the Mind Stone. So she goes in as a volunteer. They've tested the Mind Stone so far. They've given us information that they've tested the Mind Stone so far, and no one survived it. So she gets into the room with the Mind Stone. The Mind Stone activates, actually comes to her, and basically gives her a glimmer of not only her future, but also sort of unlocks her abilities. the scientists that were working on it don't see any of it at all. They don't see, actually, it just sort of becomes one of these things where it's just like there and then not there. So then Agatha surmises, she's like, well, I mean, obviously you got, you got close to an Infinity Stone that may have actually amplified or maybe even unlocked the powers that you had, but that still doesn't answer the question of how did you do this. So then the next thing is Agatha's still pushing. Wanda's completely and totally oblivious to she still doesn't know what's going on. So she the next is they go over to a little further into the future, right after Pietro's death, that we visit Wanda and Vision as they're having a one of the first times they've actually sort of kindle up a sort of put together a friendship. Wanda sits with Vision as they're watching a sitcom, Malcolm in the Middle, and she, and he basically sort of tries to console her as best as he can with the limited amount of information or limited amount of understanding of human sort of nature. He's trying to understand it, but at the same time also trying to sort of give his 2 cents on it. Says something very beautiful to her about grief and love persisting. So then that sort of, you can see the change in Wanda, that sort of brings her back from that grief of losing Pietro. After that, actually, Agatha continues to push, and she basically says, okay, what happened? How did you get to this point? Wanda doesn't understand, and Agatha just presses her to say, so when Vision was gone, you wanted him back. So they press onto the memory of when Wanda goes to Sword to retrieve Vision's body. She gets there. They're first are sort of stonewalling her. They don't want to let her in. They basically, Director Hayward finally lets her in, lets her see Vision's body. At this point, Vision is completely and totally dismantled. He's scrapped for parts. She is begging and asking, I want to take him. I want to go ahead and bury him. I want to give him a funeral. I want to be able to go through the mourning process. Hayward, in a very callous and very cold way, looking at Vision as a piece of equipment, not a person, basically sort of dismisses her, even insinuates to her that what she wants to do is bring Vision back to life, which is not her intention at all. And so as they're taking her apart, again, he uses a particular type of verbiage and a particular type of manner of speaking to her that gives the indication that he looks at Vision as a piece of equipment. It is just a machine. In this, she basically breaks into the operating table, if you will, where Vision's being dismantled. She goes down to see him. She uses her powers to try to see if she can connect again with his essence. She's unable to, so that gives her the finality to know he is gone. That body that's there is a husk. She leaves the facility. She gets into her car. We see that she has an envelope in her car. She drives out to New Jersey. When she opens the envelope, it's a deed that apparently Vision had purchased for a plot of land in the neighborhood of Westview for a home for them to buy together. And this is obviously assuming that this happened in between Civil War and Infinity War. So in her, all of these emotions coalesce in making her sort of activate this, her grief, and it basically comes out as an explosion, and she starts manifesting and creating everything around her, including the house. She basically sends out a wave that takes everything in her vicinity back to a 1950s aesthetic. And then also she's able to manifest Vision. She's able to manifest him into again a very Dick Van Dyke 1950s persona. So with that, we snap back to reality. Agatha basically feels like she's already compiled everything that she needs to know. Wanda, she disappears. Wanda hears her kids outside. She runs out to find that Agatha has both her children tethered, and reveals to her that that what she's using is chaos magic, and that it's a very dangerous magic, and that she is the prophesized Scarlet Witch, and that is how we end our secret secret. Gosh, now I forgot the term. Secret Origins episode. That's how we end our Secret Origins episode 8.
I mean, I love that episode.
Yeah, I appreciate that recap, Mo. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna just get some quick reactions on the episode. So I'm gonna start out with Jason. Just tell us your thoughts and let's just get into this discussion.
Okay, as a aspiring actor, or just in terms of the movies, just movies in general, I like story. I actually prefer story over fluff and action, X, Y, and Z. I'm down for some action too, but I love story. So this entire episode to me was the strongest episode of the series. It just was so good. I honestly don't have anything bad to say about the episode. This was really good. I like the pacing. I liked how the Marvel writers are so good, and obviously they have all this stuff at their disposal. But for them to remember small little details from movies that came out 5, 15, 10 years ago, whatever, not 15, sorry, 5, 10 years ago is beautiful. The whole way that they wrapped up why we were switching from Dick Van Dyke shows to Modern Family and everything, just to show that, the father used to sell these DVDs back in the day, and they just had a movie night. It just was just a beautiful thing. Just beautiful storytelling, in my opinion. Everything was good. I liked it. I don't like the line that Vision said to Wanda, which I assume took place in between Civil War and Infinity War, where he said, "What is love? What is grief if not love persevering?" That shit was beautiful. That's all I have to say. That was a great ass episode. I loved every part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna go ahead and kick it to Darius. I'm gonna give my opinion last, but we're going to kick it to Darius.
I'm enjoying the hell out of that episode. It confirmed a few things that we spoke about, like how they had DVDs of all the classic sitcoms, things like that. The bit where Stark's bomb was where they just exploded right in their living room. When we see Stark Industries bomb, we're like, oh man, kicks right back to the very first Iron Man film with what happened to Tony Stark himself. In fact, and there's one thing we kind of left out of the recap. We left out the stingers that were very significant. We learned what Hayward has been doing. He's been building. We were not sure what exactly it was he was doing with the robot that we get when we see that a little bit later on. There were several different theories about what that robot was going to be. And also we actually got to see a very all too brief bit of my brain's not working. Pietro, or as we like to call him, with Monica, and something crazy happens with them. Very short, very brief, but we see them interact a little bit. But I absolutely loved the origin of Agatha Harkness, and apparently the chaos magic thing is happening to her, and it kind of portends some things like maybe she could have been herself a victim of it as well. As her exposition goes forward, she clearly is, but also she's a bit corrupted by what happened to her and what her coven did to her, things like that. And I loved seeing the fact that apparently that at Sword headquarters, aka the home of Momocon, we see clearly that Hayward is manipulating everything, because apparently the break-in did not happen at all like he tried to say it did. So there's a lot of layers all in that one penultimate episode, and I know that y'all have more to talk about, so I'll kick y'all. But yeah, there was a hell of a lot to love about the semi-finale here. So go for it.
All right, Kelly.
I mean, I love this episode, but I will admit, like, after I first watched it, I felt traumatized because the scene where we see Vision being torn apart, it almost felt like watching some Saw movie. It felt like body horror, torture porn. Like I had a very big reaction to it, and for at least a good 2 days, I didn't want to hear anything about anybody's theories or anything like that, because I was like, did you guys not just see what I saw? And that's what Wanda felt. And Wanda had a far better reaction about it than I did. All she wanted to do was bury her boyfriend, her husband, because we never really see them get really married, so that's kind of just an informal title. But she wanted to bury her last family member. She wanted to bury her husband, and Hayward wouldn't even do that. And I think that should all, like, that was like the really big kicker. Like, this is a main part of her grief. She's dealt with so much for so long, and Hayward is just cruel about it. In his eyes, it's not a person, it's not a human. This is parts. This is steel. This is a weapon. And to her, that's her husband. So like that really, really got to me. And I think will probably stay with me for a while for what that is, because that's the real emotional linchpin in this series is how do you deal with grief when you can't handle it in your own way? What happens when you're not allowed? And ultimately, this is kind of what we see it blow up into. So that's really my main takeaway, is just like they really got me feeling something. And Marvel always does somehow, even when you expect it, because we all knew that scene was coming, but it didn't make the blow any less to deal with. So that's really my main thoughts on this episode.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the emotional journey. This episode was very rich in emotion, and to see someone who's lived all of these traumatic moments have to relive them. And as Agatha says, it's good medicine. But it's kind of like it makes you squirmy.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, from a viewer standpoint, and a fan standpoint, it makes me appreciate the MCU so much more, because I want to rewatch everything because of this, and it fills in a lot of story, and it gives Wanda so much more depth as a character. And it's great to see them able to do that so flawlessly. Well, I don't want to say flawlessly, but so well. They do a really good job at doing that, and it makes you even more invested. So it was great going through that journey. And the key moments, seeing actually, Agatha go through trauma. I mean, you're about to get destroyed at the stake by your own coven, and your mom is the one that's sentencing you. Wow. And then what did she have to do over the course of 400 plus years to bury that? Apparently not a whole lot, because she's pretty malicious, which we'll probably get into that a little bit more about what that character means, and what probably she's been up to, because and probably at the end of the episode 9 recap. But yeah, certainly. What's everybody's favorite part or favorite instance or scene in this particular episode? We can start with Kelly and go around.
As much as I think it's my favorite in the sense that it caused that reaction out of me. So it's kind of like, it's kind of like how we all got really traumatized by Infinity War during the dusting. Yet, that's going to be honestly iconic and memorable. To me, really is just seeing Vision on that table like that, I think is going to be the most memorable, because the thing it took to make that scene as hard, like, you know, and to make the audience feel something and make you feel like Wanda watching it, is just, I think, is an iconic part of what makes MCU honestly the best in the business when it comes to mixing things, because they have so much right, and that is literally like taking parts of a comic, you know, of that, when they dismantled Vision one time too, but they take it in a way to make it work for the medium that they're in, and it is just, you know, it has an emotional gut punch that very few filmmakers can show.
Right. Agreed. Certainly. What about you, Mo?
So I think actually I am very much a fan of humanizing our villains. Because, you know, as the saying goes, you know, a villain is a hero of their own story. Just like all of us in life, we're the hero of our own story, regardless of the fact of how we do things may impact others. So seeing Agatha, which I had missed in my recap, and I apologize for that in my Secret Origins. The Agatha origin was interesting to me, and interesting in the choices in which Catherine Hahn played this. A couple of kudos I want to give. Marvel does a phenomenal de-aging. I don't know if you guys even caught that. They de-aged her just a little bit, just enough to give you the impression that she was, obviously, yes, this was 400 years ago. She's a little bit younger. But what's interesting to me in those scenes was, as she's getting basically executed on the stake by her coven and her mother, she is still pleading and saying, I can be good. You know, at first she says she's innocent, but then when her mother says, you know, stop the deception, she says, I am just using, it's basically saying, I'm just using the abilities that were given to me. This is my ability. This is what I have. If you teach me how to use it, maybe actually I can go ahead and, you know, do some good. And her mom basically is just like, no, you can't. You can't. And that's a very it's a very interesting scene, in the sense of how many layers that has, of how many times someone can say to someone, you can't be this person because this is not what's acceptable. The other piece of this, actually, and again, it's in watching this episode 3 times, it's by far my favorite episode of the season, is a little thing was seeing her mother and the crown that forms over her head as she is actually in the process of killing or attempting to kill Agatha. It is, you know, and it'll play later on, and we'll see when it plays later on. It adds a couple of other questions to that scene about, you know, that coven, and maybe some more stuff to be explored down the line. Whether it be explored or to be a different story, I do appreciate that. You know, Catherine Hahn as she's presented here. Like I said, even at the tail end of the episode, she is still presenting herself as, no, what you're doing is wrong. This is a perversion. This is not good. So again, she's not presenting herself as the hero, I mean, as a villain at all. She's not coming into that episode with the motivations of, I'm going to go ahead and use your power for this, or let's join up and take over the world. None of those things. She basically says, you're the Scarlet Witch. You are somebody that has been foretold to be bad. It's my job to stop you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Agreed. All right, Darius, we're going to cut to you. What is your standout scene of the episode? What's your favorite?
Is it like I was talking about the flashback to her childhood in Sokovia, and the way the scene is executed, where like apparently like the parents look out the window, you see that there's constant fighting at all times, and you know they just go back and they're having this happy moment watching TV. Next thing you know, bam, they blow up. They're killed. Just this is a wonderfully executed scene. It just of instant trauma to Wanda and Pietro at the time, and they're having to deal with that right before they're recruited and radicalized, and it makes you want to go back and honestly, those scenes have made me want to go back and watch Age of Ultron a bit more every so periodically, just to see. Okay, now I see why Wanda turned out this way, why Wanda and Pietro turned out this way, why Ultron could have used him when he got that chance. But yeah, I just loved just that instant trauma. Like I said, the Stark Enterprises bomb sitting there, Stark Industries bomb, sitting there and everything. Apparently twice now, Tony Stark has interfered in Wanda's life, whether he knew it or not, and just caused havoc to her. So we got those little parallel, and we'll never ever see Tony Stark again. The way things are looking. So yeah, I just love that. There's so much to unpack just from those few minutes in this episode.
All right, we're gonna hit Jason. Jason, go ahead, shoot.
Originally, I was gonna say the moment when Wanda broke the sword and she was trying to do the thing with Vision, and she said, "I can't feel you," because that was a really good scene to me, and I say that was a parallel to Infinity War. He first was sensing Thanos, and she did it. Then she said, "All I feel is you." So that was good. Like I said, I like how they pay attention to small details like that. But it had to be for me when Wanda drove to that plot of land at the end of the episode and opened the deed, and it was the little note from Vision that said, for us to grow old in. That was emotional. Like that was big right there. That was, even though everything else had happened, it wasn't until she saw the deed and saw that note on there where she completely broke down. And I like how they, not contrary, but what Mo said earlier about humanizing the villains. I like when they show development in the heroes. People really crapped on Fat Thor in Endgame, but I loved it because it showed depression. It showed that as powerful as at that time, aside from Captain Marvel, he was the strongest Avenger. But he lost his world, his brother, his dad, his mom, his best friend. He could have stopped half the universe from dying, but he was still arrogant somewhat. So it showed his depression. It showed how he dealt with said depression. So to see Wanda, and kind of from her whole life we saw in that episode, she was always, somewhat depressed. They lived in a torn state. Her parents died, and her brother died. Then she found someone who she started to like, but then, the accident in Lagos and being on the run, and then she found Vision, and Vision was taken away from her. Oh, she found Vision, and then she had to kill Vision, and then watch him come back to life, and then watch him die again. Yeah, she just, and then got snapped away, came back, and everyone else, even with Tony said his little monologue at the end of Endgame, everyone wants a happy ending, but that's not the way it turns out. For most people in that universe, they all got a happy ending, other than, Tony and his family, Cap got to go back with his with Peggy. Falcon and Winter Soldier gonna be doing their thing, so to speak. Winter Soldier, we assume, is free from top. Black Panther was able to go back home and reunite with his king. Him and Shuri back with the kingdom. Ant-Man got to go be with Cassie and Wasp. Everyone got a happy ending, so to speak, except for Wanda. Right. Even Hawkeye, he lost that, but he was able to go back. He was able to get his family back, and that was his whole thought process the entire time, was getting my family back. So everyone, for the most part, got a happy ending aside from Wanda. Wanda is still...
And Nat. Sorry.
And Nat, well, yeah.
And Nat.
But
and technically Tony.
If you look at it, her character development, all Nat wanted to do was erase the red out of her ledger. All she wanted to do was do good, do right. She even said in Endgame, before the Avengers, she didn't have anything. She didn't have a family. This was her family. This was her job. She died doing what she wanted to do. So essentially, she got a happy ending. Yes, she passed away, but she knew her sacrifice was enough to save the world.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
Tony,
yeah.
Tony's not necessarily the same, but yes, the same. He made the choice to snap his fingers. He knew what would happen. So yes, not Tony and not Nat, but Wanda really got the tough the brunt end of the stick.
I would say actually, Jason, because this is a debate that's going on in my house right now, is who has the most traumatic experience in the MCU? Is it Thor or is it Wanda? Because both of them, see, that's my thought as well, except again, when you're looking at the scales, truthfully, again, you have, and not to just completely go off subject for time, but yeah, that's something actually for us to talk offline about.
Yeah.
But it is actually something that is an interesting sort of because in my household it's divided. A lot of people believe it's Thor.
Yeah, I would love to have this conversation. I also agree that it's Thor, in just my personal opinion. But so I would love to have this debate. I think they both suffered deeply, but I'll get.
Hey, we have a whole next episode.
We do.
We'll probably recap that at another time. Maybe we'll do a stream. A general MCU issues stream and make them
the story so far.
One of the subject matters. But I'm going to weigh in here because Anna put this. My favorite was WandaVision talking in the Avengers compound. I wish we had gotten more of that during the Avengers films. I agree, and that's the scene that I would peg as my favorite from this episode as well. I liked, from the jump, seeing, Wanda. They obviously have a connection. She sensed him on the other side of the wall before he even came in the room, and senses wanting to come in there and interact. I like it's something whenever Vision talks, it's funny because I always have the tendency to want to lean in and pay more attention to what he's saying because, even when he's not dropping a major key, just his speech pattern and just the way he puts things, I don't know. It's kind of, I don't want to say, I guess calming. It's poignant. So I think it's cool, and the scene, even though of course overall traumatic, and it ends with one in tears. There's sprinkles of humor, of course. Seeing the house fall down, and Vision. Oh, it's funny because he has a grievous injury. That I don't know. I laughed a little too hard when he said that because it was funny trying to see him process human humor, but also seeing Agatha when they're having this very tender moment, and she's kind of just like, doing that thing that made. I watched with my wife, of course, and we both cracked up at that. It was a very I'm going to say emotionally occluded scene because you got some of the light humor and you got a lot of the sadness, and you can see why the loss was so great after that. But okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and we'll leave whatever thoughts we have for episode 8 for later on after we do the recap of the finale. And so right now we're going to go ahead and we're going to have Kelly do the recap of episode 9, the final episode of WandaVision.
All right, let's see how fast I can get through it because this was the longest episode of the bunch, sitting at just under 41 minutes or 51 minutes, right? Because it was just over 50 minutes.
Right. Yeah. Around there. Yeah.
So this, we did actually get a lot, even though it almost felt like we didn't at all because it felt like it went too fast. But we pick up right where episode 8 left off, with that lovely look straight out of Disney Channel look for Agatha, holding Billy and Tommy by their necks in her. It's a like I know it's a magic thing that Doctor Strange had, but I can't remember the spell name. But is using that spell to hold the kids hostage, and Wanda is facing her down. Now that we've figured out that Wanda is the Scarlet Witch of this legend, for Agatha reveals that she wants to take Wanda's powers, either for herself or to help save the world, because the legend says the Scarlet Witch will destroy the world. We're not entirely sure. It kind of feels like it's a mixture of both for Agatha. She's just not on that super moral compass line, which we all love. We all love a good anti-hero. So Wanda manages to take her down with some help from a flying car that she threw on her, which leads us to a very wonderful Wizard of Oz homage. But then White Vision / what I call him Vision Blanco arrived with his one directive from Sword: take Wanda out. Fortunately, Technicolor Vision arrives just in time to tackle his monotone doppelganger, and Wanda and her family stand united in their objective to fight for their home. Meanwhile, Monica, all of this happening from afar with Pietro, but Monica manages to figure out and deduce that the real man holding her captive is Agatha's pawn, and in reality, a totally Kyle Stoner named Ralph Boner, who somehow owns a house. I personally think he's Blue's witness. He's the witness in protection, because I don't know how he owns a house. But Monica manages to sever the literal tie around his neck, powering Agatha's control over him, and she's free to join the battle outside. In the town square, Agatha is taunting Wanda about the whole chapter that is Witch in the Darkhold. So we find out that it is the Darkhold. I was right. Go me. It's my one little win here. So there's the Darkhold, and it's this magical book of the damned that we saw in Agatha's lair. Agatha also has a really clever twist up her sleeve, weaponizing the mind-controlled citizens of Westview by getting them out of the vision and going against Wanda, using, just having them be free to speak their minds. As they're begging just for chances to hug their families, tell missing loved ones that they love them and that they don't want them coming back, or just even Kitty Foreman asking to die. Wanda becomes so overcome by it that she loses control briefly and almost kills them in her grief. So when she realizes what she's done, she gains control of her powers again and cracks open the barrier so the citizens can leave. Now, of course, because she's left that crack open, Hayward and his team come rolling in, and Sword shows up to try and stop Wanda and take her down. While this is happening, Tommy and Billy go on Mommy's wishes, go towards the military to try and fight the military, but the soldiers start firing their guns at children. And that seems really, really sticky, but luckily Monica arrives just in time and can phase the bullets from shooting her, and can keep the bullets from stopping her from hurting the kids. Not that Wiccan needed a whole lot of help, but yeah. So that was a lot of fun to watch that. Our Vision faces off against Blanco Vision, and the two of them do a really good job destroying the local library. But it's word. Essentially, this fight ends in words, not lasers or fists or anything like that, because they start talking about identity metaphysics, the ship of Theseus, which is a thought experiment very relevant to this situation, as they are two recreations of the same entity. Our Vision uses this as an opportunity to reactivate the data that is in Blanco, and it opens up the memories that causes Blanco Vision to kind of lay off his attack and go off to find himself, because he knows that these are not his memories, but now he remembers them. So he's got some soul searching to do. So he runs off. So Vision to rejoin his family in battle, and essentially Wanda then pushes him aside to take Agatha down herself. She has lined the new set space with magical runes, something she learned from Agatha in last episode, to disable Agatha's abilities. Wanda then becomes the Scarlet Witch, and we see a really cool takeover of her, you know, a change in her suit, and she is literally the Scarlet Witch. Wanda transforms Agatha into Agnes, even while Agatha is begging and saying, "You're going to need me." So that's some foreshadowing there, I'm sure. But we will know where to find her when we do need her. And outside of Westview, our pal Agent Wu uses his own magic tricks to get free and call the FBI. Director Hayward inside Westview. Hayward actually gets taken out by Darcy in her funnel cake truck, which I enjoyed. So with White Vision flying away, Agatha trapped again in her nosy neighbor persona, and the FBI in control of Sword's shenanigans, everything is pretty much wrapped up except for the fact that Wanda has to now set things right with Westview and saying goodbye. So now we see her, Vision, and the boys go home. They tuck their sons into bed for the last time, thank them for being their sons, leave them to be. Meanwhile, she has a wonderful situation with the Vision, saying goodbye, and Vision, given the situation, has questions about the nature of his own reality, since they discuss that he's a memory, a piece of the Mind Stone that always lives within Wanda, you know, and he can become this to her. Imagine what he can be the next time they meet. And that's where we end that and say goodbye. Once the barrier is removed and it restores everything to where it was before, Wanda returns to the center of town to meet an understanding Monica, and they kind of just give themselves nods to the situation, and Wanda runs off. And that's kind of where we end that. But we do have two post-credit scenes, two stingers. In the mid-credits, Monica gets to meet back up with Jimmy. They compliment each other, and someone tells Monica she needs to go to the theater because they need her for debriefing. Turns out it's not a real debrief. We have a scroll, and the scroll is telling her that one of her mother's friends, more than likely Fury, needs her up in space. And she smiles, and we know where she's going to be found next, I'm sure. And then the second sequence is Wanda is out in a cabin in the middle of nowhere. Looks like she's making herself some tea, but in reality, she's practicing her powers and reading the Darkhold. And as she's reading the Darkhold, she hears Billy and Tommy scream for help, but we just saw them get erased from her dreams. So what does this mean? And that's it. That is the series finale for WandaVision. And we will see where this picks up in Doctor Strange 2, since this was supposed to just be a few weeks before Doctor Strange came out, but COVID.
Right.
So yeah. So I know I missed some things in here, but that's kind of the whole thing. I don't want to. We'll definitely talk about some favorite scenes.
Yeah. That's what we're going to go ahead and get into that kind of general impression, favorite scene right now. We're going to go ahead and start with Jason, and then we'll go to Darius, and then we'll go to Mo. So go ahead and kick it, Jason.
My favorite scene was at the end. Like I said, I'm a big story guy. So when Vision says to Wanda as the hex is closing, and he says, we've said goodbye so many times. and then Wanda retorts with "Can't wait to say hello again." Something along those lines. I can't remember verbatim what it was said, but it was a beautiful line. I loved it. That scene there where she's talking about, he's part of the mindset that lives inside of her. He is her anger and pain, but also the source of her hope. That it was beautiful, beautifully written to me, beautiful lines. I loved it. That last scene was my favorite scene.
All right, Darius.
Yeah, like I have three favorite scenes out of this. I'll just focus on one, but I do have to say there's one throwaway line that's mentioned as Agatha is talking about the Darkhold. She very specifically says the Scarlet Witch is more powerful than the Sorcerer Supreme. Bam, Doctor Strange reference right there. We're going to get it. You're going to get straight to it. Like, yes, foreshadowing. And adding to that, I guess, darn. Which scene did you talk about? The very last scene, seeing Wanda apparently has a golem of some sort of her getting tea, while the real Wanda apparently cannot let go of the fact that her children are gone. And as I think pretty much the multiverse of madness will probably just focus on how to stop Wanda from going on this quest to find those children that likely will destroy everything around them if Doctor Strange does not stop this. I feel that would probably be the plot. I loved how she looked, how she transformed into something more resembling her look in the comics. Can't wait to see all the cosplay at DragonCon resulting of it. And I will. I guess I'll briefly mention my other favorite scene is finally seeing Monica become Photon or Spectrum or whatever you want to call it. As the one thing I knew about her powers is that she dealt with electromagnetic energies. I did not realize that her powers dealt with kinetic energy too, thus dampening the bullets and everything. So I was like, oh yes. So yeah, we get to see more of that, and I'll talk more about what pretends for her. And I'll let everybody else talk about this stuff, but I will talk about more what that more pretends for her. Please go ahead.
Before we're gonna cut to Mo real quick, but before that, I also want to point out with that power set that we see in that scene, there is a subtle. Well, it's maybe not subtle, but she also possesses, super perception, super speed, because she perceives the bullet going by her. That's pretty fast. So just a note. All right, go ahead, Mo.
Screw you, Neo.
So I'm going to go ahead and unmute. So are we doing just favorite scenes or are we doing general impressions?
A little mixture of both. So yeah, go ahead.
So I'm going to start off with the thing that's going to probably draw the most ire. I have the hot take: weakest episode of the series.
Okay.
That not to say that just as a caveat, I enjoyed the show overall. I felt that this show, and especially as a follow-up to episode 8, which was so well, masterfully crafted and acted, this felt like a typical comic book movie payoff. We've got to have the light show now. Favorite scenes, I would have to say, yes, the Vision scene where Vision and Vision Blanco,
makes you want cheese dip, but like it's good.
Vision Blanco, aka the other white Vision, any of those that work. That philosophical conversation was by far amazing. It was great. It was like that acting right there, and that's probably what Paul Bettany was trolling us on. That particular scene was probably it. It was that scene that basically encapsulates this kind of like dynamic. So it was one of my favorite scenes. It was probably overall my favorite scene. But if we're talking about impressions itself, and some of this has been discussions I've had with you guys offline, there were certain things in the story that either from a story structure perspective and a character motivation perspective, didn't work well for me. I'm okay with leaving certain things ambiguous. I'm okay with leaving cliffhangers. I have no issue with that whatsoever. As a comic book fan, that's the way every comic book has ever been. Any comic book you read is you're reading one issue to get to the next one, to get to the next one in a story.
What we're gonna do is we're gonna get Kelly's take. And then, Mo, I'm going to kick it right back to you so you can specifically state your issue and we can talk about it, because I think that'll work pretty well. Go ahead, Kelly.
All right. Well, I mean, obviously, I actually really enjoyed this episode. I do think, I can see where somebody would see certain things fall flat because there was so much hype and so many rumors and crazy theories going on that people had a lot of hope for things that did not make sense to what the story that they were telling. So I think a lot of people's feelings kind of got hurt slightly, but for what it is, I enjoyed it. However, I do think that there should have been some extra minutes involved, kind of rev things up a little bit, entice us a little bit more for Doctor Strange. But I do want to also state they were filming this right when COVID hit last year. They were filming this here in Atlanta right when COVID hit. So who's to say that certain parts of this were not changed in the end? Because I think they had 1 week of filming left when they had to shut down, which wasn't too bad, but that means that they did probably have to change a scene or two, or maybe that's why we didn't get a Doctor Strange cameo, or who knows. There's a lot of different little things. So I think with that in mind, what we see is really amazing, and it at least helps set us up going forward to Doctor Strange, because like I said, originally this was supposed to be a good 2-week period before Doctor Strange came out, and
all right
now they're still filming. So
yeah,
right. All right, Mo, we're gonna kick it back to you. All right, so let's just go ahead and talk about some specific issues, because overall, I guess as fans, people would expect, okay, we're going to like it anyway, and we're going to have a glowing review. So, I think this will give good perspective.
So to Kelly's point, and I will agree with this because I did a lot of soul searching, even actually watching episode 9 a second time, and really taking and it's possible actually that 3 a.m. viewing was probably not the right mindset. Who knows? But I watched it the second time. The second time I watched it, it did pack a more of an emotional punch for me than the first time. The first time, I guess I was sort of I had my expectations, and I was just sort of oh. And then watching it the second time, I was really able to appreciate the story aspect of it. But in that second viewing, I did also make myself aware that or try to come to peace with the fact that yes, there was a lot of theories out there, a lot of theories of my own, and that they weren't going to come to fruition. I actually made peace with that sort of already by episode 7 and 8, because I said there's no way for a decent payoff to be for any of these theories, specifically Mephisto. I think there's no way for them to pay this off, because then that would fall flat. It would really, if episode 9 came around and then here's Mephisto, I think people, unless they got an actor that really would have been oh my gosh, how did they get this actor to do it? There really wouldn't have been any connection for the audience. For the comic book fans, absolutely, yes, we would have seen it. We would be yes. But for people, for the outsider even the casual comic book fan, they would have been that sort of came out of left field. And then the other main thing for me, and this is another thing that I think is going to be is interesting to talk about, Hayward. I did not hate Hayward. I think he's one of the weakest villains in the MCU. And by weak, I mean the way they wrote it. So to circle back to my point earlier about writing villains and writing them with motivations, I feel like Hayward was written as a cookie cutter, bureaucratic, military type. I want to go ahead and do this. And truth of the matter is that when that episode ended and he's getting pulled away to jail, I sat there, even on the second viewing, and said to myself, why is he going to jail? What did he do wrong? I need you to legally sit down and tell me what he did wrong. He did nothing wrong. He was within his authority and sword to do everything he did. Did he make some moral choices that were wrong? 100%. Did he do anything illegal? Absolutely not. He did not. That was a Waco, Texas situation, and I don't see anybody actually that from that particular instance that went to anybody in authority that went to jail because they went ahead and actually said, "Hey, we raided the thing." No.
Yeah.
So that part of it from a story structure made no sense. I get why Wanda didn't get arrested because she left, and truth of the matter is that actually who was going to stop her? But she left because of that reason. She bolted. She has responsibility, but Hayward. Like, what did he do wrong? I mean, is he an asshole? 100%. You don't go to jail for being an asshole. Ted Cruz is out there right now, not in jail. I'm sorry, I went political.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. I mean, I was going to say, maybe he got arrested for having the army, put guns in front of fake children.
But who was there to see that except for the people who actually stopped it? Well, that's what I'm saying. But Monica, but that's it. That's her word against his. And even in that case, again, they're treating it. I'm not saying that, again, everything morally that he did is wrong.
Yeah.
But even actually, it still would have to go to court. It would go to trial, all of that stuff. And you'd have to prove all of that stuff. And that they weren't, and that the military wasn't engaged because, again, Speed engaged the military. He went ahead and took their weapons, and then actually Wiccan, used his powers against them. So again,
yeah. So I'm gonna actually pop into a couple of comments here by Anna, and how did he get Vision's body? And maybe he got arrested for stealing Homeboy's corpse. So, the thing about it is, and I'm going to actually, quote you, Mo, the effectiveness of the writing would be displayed by not having to surmise all of this stuff, right? If we're just merely guessing. We have really no illustrative correct reason to understand exactly what what makes him a villain.
Yeah, well, actually, too, though, I think he might have gotten arrested because of the fact that Darcy found a lot of things that they were talking about. How Hayward, there was a lot of things he could go down for, and Darcy sent that to Jimmy, and to Jimmy and to Monica. And, they were on the outside enough to then send that to people when Darcy got caught up in the bubble. So it's entirely possible that they sent that off to them already. And, it just, movie-wise, it doesn't make sense because, like, Jimmy calling saying, "Hey, come arrest this guy," is not a good...
There is one bit, though, that he did actually manufacture evidence.
Yeah.
Very specifically and manipulate things. And I think that could possibly be one of those, like, okay, you manufacture illegal. Like, that could be a legal thing that would be.
And that goes back to my writing about writing Hayward. So I can go into a whole thesis about how Hayward was not written well as a villain.
No.
Hayward had every reason and motivation out and didn't have to forge anything at all to prove that Wanda was a threat. The end of the episode, one of the beautiful things about this show, and actually this was something that I think I talked about in either episode 2 or 3 as a theory, was maybe Wanda is the villain. And honestly, the way this episode ends up, yes, Wanda is. This is a very gray episode. Wanda is not a hero. Let's be very clear about that. She is not a hero. She the way she left those people in that town. Imagine for a second you are any of the characters there, and they've just survived the snap, whether they came back. Maybe some of these people came back in that neighborhood. They come back to existence, and a week or so later, they get trapped in a fake reality where they're basically sort of leeching off of Wanda's emotions. That's traumatic. Those people are traumatized for life. and so that's what I'm saying. Like I will say that about this series. I love the way that they left it ambiguous to make you feel like Wanda's not the hero in this. I'll be honest, I don't like the way Monica responded to her and sort of gave her the sort of like the typical like, it's all right. No, she's not the hero in this. She is not at all. And I actually, and if they play this right, where they play her as more of a possible villain for Doctor Strange 2, that part of it would be fantastic. But going back to Hayward, I feel like Hayward had enough information and evidence to pursue what he was doing without having to get anybody on board. Now his dealings with Vision per se, again, he did bring up a point when he was talking to Wanda. They had the legal and ethical right to dismantle him, and the truth is they did. Now his plans were ulterior. He was going to go ahead and bring him back online, but ultimately it was in Sword's hands because Sword legally, Sword, Shield, whoever, they legally had to go ahead and actually and take possession of Vision's body. It couldn't just be out there into the world. I'm surprised actually they were able to come into Wakanda and get it. That's the part that to me even that lends into some more
I'm
questions.
wondering if they actually did.
I think we had talked about that on a previous stream, like how did Vision get from Wakanda to Westview? That makes no sense whatsoever. And maybe
Wakanda ain't gonna let people just walk up in there and be like, "Yo, let me grab this real quick."
Especially after everything that happened.
I don't think they did.
Even Black Panther getting dusted and everything, even with their whole nation in array, there's no way anybody from Sword or Shield walked into Wakanda, contacted Wakanda, and was like, "Let me get that. Let me get Vision body real quick." Nah. The only thing I can surmise is if when the Avengers left Wakanda, they took Vision with them back to the compound.
That's what I
Then something happened there. That's the only thing, and then maybe Sword or Shield came through. And with maybe Pepper paid to get Avengers Compound rebuilt, through Sword of Shield. In the meantime, after everything is settled down, X, Y, and Z, after Tony dies, in some way, shape, or form, they get a hold of Vision's body. But even then, there's no way, because at the end of Endgame, the beginning of WandaVision, it's literally like a week, 2 weeks, not even. So there's no way they rebuilt Avengers Compound. There's no way they found Vision's body that quick.
Yeah, so I mean,
Wanda did not sign the Sokovia Accords.
You said what now?
No, I was answering this question.
Wakanda is a part of the Sokovia Accords. Yeah, that's the whole thing. That inciting incident led to them beginning the draft, and that is actually a very good point. We could say that, and this is surmising that, Vision's body was extradited under the pretense of, he's sentient. He exists. So he has a living will, a directive. He could have wanted a proper burial. He doesn't want to be used as a weapon, but his rights as a being were violated, and he was intercepted by Sword. That's one plausible thing that we can say.
Leonard, I'm sorry, I'm going to go ahead and put on my glasses because I just need to do this.
Here we go.
It's a civil matter, sir. That is not a legal matter. That's not an arrest matter. That's what I'm saying. So what again, Hayward, not written well. That's, if there's one glaring thing about this entire show, Hayward was just not it was poorly, his motivations were poorly written, the way that, like, I don't get me wrong, there were scenes in which give you the inkling and sort of the sort of a taste that he has disdain for superheroes. Go with that, and all you have to do for a good script, all you have to do is just add a couple more lines of dialogue. It doesn't have to be a whole scene. You don't have to have a scene of him being a kid playing in the park, or you don't have to do any of that. Just add a scene of him with one of his superiors or one of his subordinates saying, "Hey man, yeah, ever since the snap, man, this is, all of these people are trash. All these people are just complete trash. I think they all need to go away." That's all you need to do to set up the overarching motive for it itself. Having little hints is fine, but when you're going to have this villain be a prominent fixture in the show from episode 1 all the way through episode 9, which I think in the cast, he's probably one of the ones up there that is in every episode or almost every episode. If you're going to have him be a through line villain, or antagonist. Let's not say villain. Let's say antagonist. I think that they could have done a better job. That's why when going back to Agatha at the end, I got to be honest, I was a little confused at her motives at the end in the last episode, which also lends to my not liking this episode as much, because episode 8 left it off where she was just like, I'm the hero. You're not the hero. I'm the hero. Episode 9 sort of is just sort of like, well, I want your power, but you're doing bad, and maybe I need it, and like it was a little muddy on that. I did like their chemistry. I like their dynamic. I really wish that they keep Catherine Hahn on as Agatha for any upcoming movies with Wanda, because I think she knocked it out of the park. She was fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I will make a slight point, and it's not really, I guess it's really a neutral statement. It's kind of makes it a little bit more realistic that there's a lot of gray area and it is muddy. I mean, come on, look at 2020. And once again, I don't want to get into a lot of the dynamics, but who's right? Are the people that believe that they shouldn't be wearing masks because it's their right, or the people that, I'm wearing masks to protect everybody. There's a lot of gray area in all issues. But we're watching a TV show and we want resolution, right?
Well, I don't think any of us MCU watchers knew we were having resolution going into the show. We knew this was tying into something else. I do somewhat agree with Mo. Me personally, I was overwhelmed by the episode, but I think that's because I and fans as well hyped it up so much that I was expecting like boom, 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 boom the whole episode. Was the episode good? Yes, but there were so many things that let me down. The Quicksilver reveal let me down. We didn't get a huge cameo. I swore and hoped that Doctor Strange was going to show up. That didn't happen, so that kind of let me down. I got my own hiccups, and that let me down. But it didn't answer prominent questions, and now we have to wait years to find out who was this FBI witness that Jimmy Woo was looking for.
Okay, one. All right, one. Like I'm pretty sure that was Ralph Boner.
If it was cool, whatever.
Was
he
it
had
though?
He had a headshot in his room, so it made it sound like he was like an actor.
I don't know. I think my money is on that delivery guy. That's what he looked shady to me. He looked shady to me.
All right.
Not huge plot points. It was just little things here and there. It just was like, that's the plot points or bad thing. It was just a letdown. And Mo, we argued about this last week. Or I don't know if we argued, but we talked about this last week. Hayward did do anything to me that young Nick Fury wouldn't have, not young Nick Fury, but Nick Fury in his heyday wouldn't have done. Do whatever you can to protect the earth, protect people. He didn't give a damn about ethics, morals.
Yeah.
We do what we got, whatever it takes. He didn't do anything that Nick Fury wouldn't do.
I mean,
True.
Well, I do want to say, I think the thing is that it did explain a lot. I think it actually explained far more than what I was I ever expected for it to. Now, I also had hopes, in certain theories that we didn't get answered. Although I guess,
Mephisto.
But mine are still kind of sitting out there in the etherverse, and I even had, because I was I'm not kidding. I was, after episode 8, I was traumatized, and that's all I was talking about, and that's one reason why a friend of mine who had worked on these sets was like, okay, just so you know, XYZ, to try and make me feel better. And I was like, no, don't tell me these things. And obviously I'm not going to repeat them. But a lot of the things that I think everyone's just feeling let down about, you need to realize we're going to get a lot of it in due time. But it's got to be it's not going to be in this one show. And it never was going to be like that. And it's not going to be, it might not be in the next movie or et cetera, but we are going to get everything, as it unfolds within this next chapter. It took 10 years for the original, to kind of end its first chapter with Endgame. So now we're going into this new chapter and what it may or may not unfold. But I think we'll see everything we want to see within the next I would even say in the next 8 years or so, if that, we might see everything way sooner than we originally realized.
It's not a bad
we
thing.
may not.
It's not a
That's
bad
fine,
thing. Yeah, it's not a bad thing. It's just that I guess I don't know. I guess because we were just so hype about the finale and everything that came out of it. I was expecting it to be little things left to the wayside. We'll find out, and as possibly Captain Marvel 2 or Ant-Man or Doctor Strange or Spider-Man for that matter. I don't know. I just wasn't like super like the fight was. I do like how their fight, Wanda and Agnes, wasn't a prototypical CGI Avengers battle type thing. Wanda outsmarted her. That was cool. I do like how Vision clearly could not beat Vision Blanco, so he outsmarted him as well. That was different. They gave us different. So I guess that's cool. I don't know. I just felt afterwards. I just didn't feel after episode 8. I was like, "Sport, let's go." Episode 9 is gonna be lit. And I watched episode 9. And I was like, "This is cool. This is cool. This is cool."
Well, personally, and I'm gonna throw up a quote here. In this respect, looking at Wanda's journey, I think the show accomplished that, and I guess with that, it accomplished that. We got to see that, and she did get resolved. She did get healing. That from what started the whole situation in the first place. I'm going to say also something as well. I'm going to talk about some other aspects of the episode. With Tommy and Billy, and my wife and I, we had a discussion about this, and she was right. I said since they were born. And they were biologically born in the hex that they were real, right? Real. But apparently not, as they could not have a physical form without the hex being in existence. But talking about that whole situation with them and just going into my take on the second stinger with with Wanda in her retreat, the whole thing with her hearing the voices, to me, there's two ways of looking at it. She could actually be hearing them, and their consciousness is on another plane, or someone can be taunting her.
Yep.
Which I'm leaning towards because. There's another reason why I think that's more plausible. It's the fact that when Agatha was getting her powers drained, she kept referring to, "You don't know what you're doing, you don't know what you've done." And I feel like by taking her powers the same way with Odin losing, dying and losing his grip on his magical spells, and boom, Hela comes out. Agatha could have been holding something back. She's been around for 400 years, and there could be major repercussions from that. And so, in being connected to Agatha, those voices could be just a taunt. So we may do that.
Well,
glasses again. Sorry, real quick. Glasses again.
Here we go.
The bill always comes due.
Always comes due.
Always.
All right. So for comic knowledge, I'm not going to get into issues or anything like that, but there is a particular demon that loves Wanda that is also tied to the Darkholm, which is Citron, and I might be mispronouncing it, but that is how I've always pronounced it, because you don't ever learn proper pronunciations when you read comics. But the demon Citron, who loves to possess Wanda, and generally whenever she's like hardcore evil with the classic Avengers, it's because she's possessed by this demon. He is the demon of that book.
Oh, the Darkhold, yeah.
Yeah. So it's instead of like what we could see is this demon be more of a nightmare or more of a Mephisto in in Doctor Strange, then but it's or they could wind up just being a mixture of all three with any of those names. We don't know. But I kind of agree. I agree with you. Like it's going to be a taunting measure. Something that is in the book is definitely going to be messing with Wanda because she doesn't know what she's doing.
And actually, in this, following up on that same stinger, because I've heard different people get different interpretations of what that meant, like why there were two Wandas. The way I read it, and maybe it is because of the fact I just watched Doctor Strange before episodes 8 and 9. I read that as she is Doctor Strange had to have his body asleep to do astral projection.
Mm-hmm.
He could do it consciously, but his body has to be basically like in the comic books, his body is vulnerable when he's in astral projection. Wanda's so OP that she can still have her body on autopilot and be over here. And that's the way I took that particular scene. Because even the effect that they use is sort of weird, sort of like soft, glowy kind of thing. If you look at the episode, if you look at that scene, the book is completely material. It looks like it's there, similar to in Doctor Strange when he was going through the books. He was translucent in a way, but the book was obviously material. I think that's what's happening in this case, and her getting more knowledge and more information from the Darkhold. Yes, I will 100. I'll third what you guys, what Leonard and what Kelly said. I think that it isn't so much her kids as much as something actually that now is been made accessible, that now is going to use that to go ahead and actually take advantage of her and take advantage of her abilities.
All right. So I'd love to get to, because Anna's blowing up.
Anna's going nuts.
Actually, let's just take a minute. So what she's basically saying in a nutshell is that she believes that Billy and Tommy were created, but they were pulled from a different reality. So just as the MCU is Earth, it's 199999. She pulled them from a different reality, which could be the very case. And she's so in tune with them when they disappeared, if they disappeared for real, because we didn't see that happen. That she can hear them wherever they are. So that's that. I mean, I think that's that has great potential. Certainly. Go ahead, Darius. You want to say something?
Okay, actually, I want to talk about a little bit about a different aspect of the episode.
Sure, yeah.
Because we actually, I enjoyed the hell out of the episode. I feel like it's like Christmas. There were some things I wanted that I got, some things I wanted that I did not get. Let's throw out the big elephant in the room. A lot of people wanted to see this as a backdoor to somehow seeing Fantastic Four or the X-Men somehow show up and use this as a conduit. And we didn't quite get that, but we may get some small tidbits of it. But I was very happy with the episode in March, in large part, especially due to the final scene between Wanda and Vision, as they both knew their reality was about to come to an end. I saw somebody else. I've seen a couple articles point to, though, about Monica not getting a full denouement here in this particular episode, and I would honestly like to say that in two respects they are wrong, respectfully. This is more Wanda's show than it was Monica's, but I did love that little bit where at the end, before Wanda left, Monica basically said if she had this type of power, she would have tried to bring her mom back, and they kind of connected. It's like, okay, I kind of understand it. Not perfect, but I kind of understand why you did it. Go your way, and let that be it. Also, a big fight would pretty much tear up that town. But also, I also love the fact that we actually did really get to see Monica become whatever she's going to call herself. And we get this nice, lovely bit of one of the Skrulls come in to recruit her. And I keep thinking, if I remember correctly, there was a female Skrull at the very end of Spider-Man: Far From Home. There
Mhm.
was there were two Skrulls that had been popping up also in both Captain Marvel and in Far From Home. I kind of get the impression that the female Skrull might have been her.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
and also, they said, okay, somebody wants to recruit you to talk with you. And an old friend of your mom's. Is it either that Skrull or is it Nick Fury? We're not sure yet, but seems pretty logical that the next thing that will be, they've already announced the Secret Invasion storyline with Nick Fury leading the
Mhm.
way in that. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Um, and I think that between this show developing her, that happening, and then I think Captain Marvel 2 will culminate everything. We'll see a lot more of Monica becoming Spectrum, and I'm very much looking forward to that. But like I love, like seeing these. The one thing I love about the MCU, they keep these little tidbits to connect to one story to the other, to the other, to the other. Um, while I am disappointed in some of the other things. I'm still mad that I'm never going to see Mandarin fight Iron Man. As far as I'm concerned, that's still like the one thing that still ticks me off. But I'm generally happy as a long and in the long run with how the MCU is going, and how so many things that are being set up for phase. I guess is this phase 2 or phase 4? Whatever. I don't know how to count it anymore. Our the last it was called the Infinity Saga. I don't know what this section is called. And everything.
We'll
I
find
I
out.
I have a theory, but
Go for it.
Secret Wars.
You
Well,
think Secret Wars will be one of
it
them?
may culminate in Secret Wars as a particular event. But I definitely agree with you, Darius. I think that most of the issues people have with the show, and we're kind of recapping now. Most of the issues people have with the show is the headcanon. All of the theories, all of that, all of the possibilities. And I'm going to say, the writers did tease us, right? They taunted us with that, and so it made it, explode out of control. So when those things didn't happen, there was definitely, there's definitely the letdown. But I will say, Darius, I believe that at the end of Spider-Man: Far From Home, that was Talos's wife that was with him.
Yeah.
This is this in the first Stinger. I believe that's a totally different character.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's that's that.
Darius, that's jacked up, man. Darius, you think all Skrulls look the same? Come on, Darius. Man, it's 2021. Come on.
It does give a little bit of a thought process because Nick Fury likes to have eyes and ears everywhere. Would he not have some Skrulls chilling in Sword, trying to make sure things are going one way or the other? How did he not know about Hayward's plan? Did he know about Hayward's plan? Was he cool with Hayward's plan?
Oh, I mean, I'm sure he did because we just saw Homegirl.
Well, she's an FBI. Wasn't she an FBI? I don't know.
Oh, you know what? You're right. She was FBI.
FBI.
You're right. But
I mean,
yeah,
wouldn't Fury have people? If there was a new Shield, wouldn't Fury have? Would he be in control of it or have eyes and ears there to make sure things were going the way they were supposed to be going? Because when Hayward was always the intern director. What was the phrase? What he was called?
Yeah, it was a acting director.
Acting
yes.
director, which means that he took his orders from somebody or somebody's.
Yeah.
Would it not be Fury? Who was above him? Because yes, the World Security Council is dead.
That's the greatest. That's the greatest thing about any of these organizations is that when you inject a little bit of reality into it, there's a lot of bureaucracy and a lot of people that don't know one thing that's happening to the other. So Fury obviously is busy right now in space. If you don't count Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. as canon, for all intents and purposes, S.H.I.E.L.D. doesn't really exist anymore.
But isn't Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., isn't it canon? I haven't watched it since Ghost Rider.
No, it's so the thing is they like to pick and choose what they decide. on, but officially, no, it's not. But every so often, they're like, well, we'll take this, but we're not going to take this.
So what I'm going to say
is it on the lines of like how the Netflix Defender shows are, like canon, not canon?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's okay. So here's my technicality for that situation. Just as the multiverse exists, technically everything is canon because it can be accessed through the multiverse, right? That's how I'm going to get around that,
But the question becomes when it comes to canon is, does this all take place in Earth 6110 or whatever? Yeah, like that 616, but whatever the Marvel Cinematic Universe denomination is.
199999.
Yeah, exactly. So does this all take place there? And that's where the question is. So to your point, Jason, yeah, the Netflix shows and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., although they were loosely tethered to it, the moment there was a divide between Marvel TV and Marvel Studios, they sort of branched off into their own thing. So if you watch, for example, the last season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., technically they went into an alternate reality at the end of that show. They went into an alternate Earth.
Alternate reality.
Yeah, so they didn't keep them all together. So all that to be said, maybe so. I mean, there's always,
Did Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. ever reference the snap or anything of that nature?
No. They didn't actually. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right around the time of the snap, the agents went on a trip to the future where this Earth was destroyed already. And then when they came back, so again, it got very, like, if you're trying to connect the dots, you guys can't see it. It's off camera, but I do already have a diagram that has strings on it already that connects everything. It connects
turn the camera so we can see it. We can see it.
To Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah. No, it can get confusing, and that was another thing too. I think I noticed in like social media's aspect of how much this touched on a cultural like touchstone for us, and everybody was so excited and happy to see this. Is maybe it had a lot to do with the fact that we had the pandemic beforehand and we really don't have a whole lot to do or discuss that's fun until this popped up. But I feel like everyone almost got too armchair investigative into it. Like, because I know, like, we had said, hey, Kelly, tone down some of the comic knowledge. You got too much. But the thing is that, like, I still don't think, like, I got as far deep and into some crazy theories as some other people online, just because they were so excited and they were like, oh my God, it's got to be like this. And you got to connect it here and here and here and here and here. And I'm right. And then you watch it. And no, you're not. Like, I mean, even I can say, like, as much as I enjoyed it, I thought it was a solid episode, a solid series. Episode 9 first time you watch it is a tiny bit of a letdown in certain aspects because there was so much hype and so much anticipation, and you don't quite get that. Now, I still think that it's a far solid finale compared to, Game of Thrones.
It
doesn't just sit there and like, explode all over itself and go screw everything else we just explained. The original intention was this was like the comma to the movie, and the movie was almost basically going to complete the series, but now we've got to wait, and who knows how many screen rewrites and changes that they've made to Doctor Strange since the pandemic. So we'll see what happens. And that's kind of the main situation. This was supposed to just lead us right into that movie, and it doesn't now. But we do get.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kelly.
Go ahead. I was just saying we do get something else to tide us over.
Okay.
I was going to just make one quick remark, and it was something actually I overheard in one of the blogs or videos about reviewing this episode and reviewing the series, and where the fans have here's the thing, it said that there's a vocal minority, I think, that's really making it like, oh my gosh, this episode is horrible. Mm-hmm. It's because we did, as fans, we, and I'm going to include myself in this 100%, we, in our minds, to Leonard's point, have a headcanon of this is where we think it's going to go. This is, 100. I've read the comic books. I have an investment in this. This is the way it's going to go. And so we didn't give the show the same breath that we would have given, say, for example, a new IP. If a new IP came out and it's like, it's the first time you watch The Matrix. That's the best way I could phrase it. You had no expectations of what the Matrix was going to be. You watch it and you're just like, because you had no expectations. When you watch something that is based on a book, based on a comic book, based on a novel, whatever the case is, you have a preconceived notion and expectation. This is what it's going to be. And when it's not that, it goes either one of two ways. Either people love it or people are just like, this is the worst thing in the world. And that's we created that. And then there is also another discussion that's also going on, which is basically because it's episodic. It gives fans enough time to theorize. When they drop the Netflix shows of Daredevil, for example, it was all there. You couldn't speculate anything because you watched the whole the whole series in one sitting, the one season. With shows like this, every week is another week. You have a chance to be like, wait a second.
Yeah. But at the same time, it created this community. It created a lot of buzz. It created a lot of intrigue and chaos. I mean, Disney Plus beat Netflix for the first time consistently for the most clicks and views.
Right.
And, you know, that's kind of crazy ultimately because Netflix has never really been beaten before.
Okay.
Did
So
Mandalorian do that?
It's going to continue that for the next 6 weeks too.
Yeah.
Right.
And no, The Mandalorian didn't do it.
Interesting.
That's wild. That's wild because Mandalorian is so good.
Right.
I know.
All right. I want to pose one question because we're going to have to be wrapping up here pretty soon. But just one question that's kind of like, you know, throwing that chicken in the grease. Are there mutants in the MCU as a result of the show?
Yes.
No.
I still agree
As a
that there
result
will
of this
be.
show, I don't think so. As a result,
Not
of this
yet.
show, not yet.
Well,
Not yet.
not yet. So that's most people don't believe there are mutants, including Wanda and Quicksilver.
Okay.
Well,
okay.
good thing. One, Quicksilver is dead.
Go ahead, Kim. Go ahead.
Mhm.
Sorry. One,
Go ahead.
Quicksilver's dead. Two, Wanda's magic powers were never a part of her mutant abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So this has, you know, right now we're exploring her magic powers. Who's to say anything about any mutant abilities later on down the line?
Okay. So Kelly knows way more Wanda comic knowledge than I, so I'm not going to go back and forth with her. It'd be a hard fight. But they did say, so I guess to your question, Leonard, it's possible because they were saying Agnes did say that Wanda already had that power in her, and the Mind Stone just either unlocked or enhanced it. We don't know what age Wanda was when the Mind Stone hit her, but we do know she had powers when she was a preteen, maybe 10 or 11, maybe around that age, and that mutants tend to get their powers at puberty. We don't know what Quicksilver was, because he's dead. So unless they bring that up later on, there's no way to know. But Ultron did say he wondered why the two of them were the only ones to survive Stark's experiments. And if we could, that's how we probably had hundreds of experiments with the Mind Stone, if possible. So it's possible that there are mutants walking around that just haven't been unlocked. Who knows how MCU is going to tell that story or bring it into fruition? Maybe the snap, maybe the cosmic energy that Rocket was talking about with the snap could unlock some people's powers. And typically it's only been a week or 2 weeks since Hulk snap or Tony snap. 2 snaps in one day, mind you. So who knows what is running around.
Around the world, 2 snaps.
Yeah, 2 snaps in a day. And maybe less than an hour from each other, so who knows what happened?
Well, I mean, the only thing is just it's, you know, magic is magic. So by that logic that you're talking about would then also make Doctor Strange a mutant, which isn't true. So that's
Well,
kind
not
of what I'm
necessarily.
trying to tell you. There's two. The thing with
Well,
Wanda is she's got two. She kind of sits in two separate teams. She sets up in the mutant area of Marvel and also sets up in the mystic area of Marvel. And right now, this mystic side of Marvel, but that's not saying that Quicksilver might have not survived because he was a mutant, and there are other mutants out there that we haven't explored yet. It just doesn't apply to Wanda or through that logic with her magic.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to also be aware that in the history of Wanda in the comic books, there have been retcons with that character. So it's very possible. Like, my theory is actually that there aren't mutants actually in the MCU. And if they are playing it smart, I could be completely off base in this particular theory, but if they play it smart, they're opening up the doors to a multiverse. It may be better to have the mutants be in their own universe versus incorporating it into this, because I think, especially with the things that they're incorporating right now into this next phase and beyond, you have things like the Eternals, which are which do key into mutants, very connected right away, but then you also have a character like Blade, who is more on the mystical side of it. So I think that, and actually sort of a mutant, I guess. Actually, if you want to, but again, she's been retconned because at one point she was, they retconned a couple of years ago that she wasn't Magneto. Her and Quicksilver weren't Magneto's kids. So I think that, like Kelly said, I think actually she falls in this weird sort of middle ground in the comic books. But for the intents of this story and what's happening and what they're exploring, it seems more, just looking at the villains like Kang, looking at, like I said, the Eternals, all of that stuff. I think that they may branch mutants off into their own separate thing. And that may be the smartest thing to do, because that way you can go ahead. The mutant history and stuff is so vast. Putting it in here may make it a little too bloated, and you don't want that. I don't think you don't. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm going to give my take. I particularly, if we were just talking about Wanda herself, then I would say, okay, yeah, it's magic, and magic has nothing to do with being a mutant, right? But the fact that we're talking about Quicksilver as well, unless somehow he was magical and his abilities manifested as speed, then what was he if not a mutant?
Unless Wanda lent her power to him a little bit.
That's also true, because she didn't want to go without the world without her brother.
Yeah. So she could have very well empowered him, just like, actually, as a matter of fact, and this series crystallizes that, because then we got Pietro, who also has speed. So
Ralph Boner.
Pietro. AKA Ralph Boner. He had speed, actually, that was endowed to him as well. So it's that was my theory. The reason I think in this show they made no mention of him even during her flashbacks was because I think that she was the one who basically, with her abilities, basically manipulated reality and was able to go ahead and actually give him powers, and that's the reason why he ended up with powers. It was a random grab bag, but that's what she gave him.
All right. So I guess let's go ahead and go around and
Oh,
so
did we lose Leonard?
Oh,
is he in the mirror? Is he in the mirror dimension?
Can you see me?
Oh, the mirror dimension.
Yeah,
mirror dimension.
right.
Here, real quick.
Let's just go ahead and give Wanda
So about that multiverse,
a letter grade. We're gonna go ahead and start with Kelly, and then go to Mo, and then go to Jason and Darius. Let's just go ahead and give a letter grade to WandaVision as a whole.
A plus 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 plus. I love this series. To me, like, I think that this breathes some fresh life into the MCU because it's a different format for us to enjoy it, but we didn't lose the quality. And I'm excited to see what where else we go with the other TV shows.
All right, Mo.
After some serious soul searching, I think I'm going to give it a B plus. It wasn't an A for me. Part of it was because of that last episode. Again, this is not coming from my theories weren't right. It's more coming from, again, Hayward. I'm going to get a printed shirt that says Hayward was right.
All right, Jason.
As a fan of story and a huge fan of MCU, I'm gonna give this an A minus. I thought it was good pacing. Story was slow build. I love the slow build. Story was good. It had very much emotional moments, very much fun moments. Of course, I loved all the references to Office. Is my favorite show. Any type of situational humor, I love. The finale was the only reason why I wouldn't give it an A plus, just because I hyped myself up for something that wasn't going to be, that was not there. But overall, I give it an A minus.
All right, Darius.
I give it an A. I love the nostalgia that it brought back. Growing up, all those different eras of sitcoms, they were just so much fun. They wove a wonderful story for both Wanda and Vision. Very emotional, wonderful stuff. Also, we get new characters. We get in Agatha and in Monica growing up and developing, and we get some fun callbacks with Jimmy Woo and very lovely Kat Dennings as Darcy. Like all the memes that have come out of that. Sorry, she was nice. So, and so. So yeah, but yeah, and then the finale. I enjoyed the hell out of the finale. It was seeing the denouement and beginning for Wanda and Vision and where things may go from here, good and bad. I absolutely loved it. I would love to have a Blu-ray set or 4K set or whatever they have these days. And I absolutely enjoyed it.
So I'm definitely on the A minus train. It wasn't perfect, but I think this is the show that we actually needed. They did something different. They took a risk and they gave us something different. It started out so different that people didn't even know what to think, and then we get this nice little dovetail into a great, I guess we get dovetail into a great story that fills in the gaps of a character that we are familiar with and we love. Actually, a few characters, but then we also, as you mentioned, Darius, we get to fall more in love with some of these supporting characters that we've seen before, who actually tackle an A-level threat in this case. And so that's it. It's absolutely great to see. So certainly an A minus, and kudos to Marvel Studios for this incredible show.
Let me just say, Marvel is always good at the troll level is always amazing. So the Ralph Lauren thing, super troll, and I don't think we ever talked about it at all. The Scarlet Witch costume looks amazing.
Oh yeah! Oh my gosh! Yes,
that's amazing.
That
and
is
how it's so funny how it looks so similar to the Magneto costume in Apocalypse. It looks exactly like it, same hue, same design.
The motif.
And I'm sure they did that on purpose. I'm sure that was on purpose. Marvel loves the trolls. They do.
Yeah.
And I also appreciated the Vision, as I like to call him, Vision, the White Vision.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm like, everyone keeps saying White Vision, and I'm like, please don't, because if you type that in the Google search bar, you're gonna go down a really strange rabbit hole. But when you call him Vision Blanco,
right. Swiss Vision. How's that?
I was in the color Vision myself. That was actually nice.
I like that. I honestly like that, and I love the fact that it's a nod also to the comic books of having that particular version be the dehumanized version, similar to the comic books where he's devoid of emotion. It's Paul Bettany again. When you're talking about the acting in the show, by far, actually, the standouts for me were Catherine Hahn, were also Jimmy Woo, Darcy. They were standouts for me in their acting, and that's not taking away from Paul Bettany, and that's not taking away from Olsen either. They both were freaking phenomenal. They did such a. Oh, we lost Leonard.
Since we're still live, if we want to continue talking, I'm checking.
Yeah.
So by
anyway,
default,
so
Kelly take over by default.
Yeah, so that was the acting on this show. That's why I would say I can't. There's all joking aside, it doesn't take away from my enjoyment. My rating of the show doesn't take away from my enjoyment. It is a solid show. It sits up there with my favorite Marvel TV shows. It sits up there, actually ranks high up in there, and it does give. It is a nice sort of segue into this next phase, and it does, I think, set the tone of what we're going to look at going forward. And again, I'm always cool with having a villain that is, in this case, obviously Agatha, stick around and not just be like, oh, she's been smoked, she's been killed, we can't use that one anymore. Sorry, it's done. Plus,
Hello.
I don't know. I mean, obviously, there's always fan matchups. I would love to see her and Mordo team up. I would love to see that. That would be bomb diggity.
It would just end with Mordo trying to steal her power because there's too much magic in the world. He would turn on her.
Yeah. So while I guess I do have one last question, just to lead us into the next time you guys will see us. Who is excited for Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
My shield is in the other room, so I can't go get it right now. But yes, my shield. Let me tell you, going into the MCU, Captain America as a comic book character was my least favorite character. Him and Superman to me are just so boring. I don't like the Boy Scout. I like my heroes to have problems, so to speak. But watching
I can find some comic issues for you.
you might have to recommend some, because I was like, Captain America does nothing for me. Well, going into the MCU and watching, and even the first Captain America movie, I did not care for. But obviously, Winter Soldier changed the game, and just watching Chris Evans, his turn as Captain America, and you can't really say character development because he was essentially the same person throughout. Every time that you saw something different in him was Civil War. I loved it. It just made me love the character. So anything having to do with that character, I'm 100% down for it. And I like this buddy cop back and forth that Bucky and Falcon have with each other. I think it's going to be very good. And Zemo,
I mean, please don't take my sort of meh about that. Is that I in all the shows that were announced when they were announced, this one sort of sat a little bit lower. Like WandaVision and What If were my top one. Were the two top ones that I had, and then subsequently everything else and then with this new announcement of Secret Invasion and stuff like that, they've also sort of pushed up. So again, I don't want it to be mistaken with the fact that I'm not going to enjoy the heck out of it. I'm just saying that out of all the shows that I have upcoming and all the MCU movies that are coming up, this one is one of those where I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'll watch it.
It's because I think everything they announced was something that it was like, oh, this is leading up to something else, or this is bigger, or this is a brand new storyline. We've seen Falcon and Winter Soldier. We've seen their dynamic with each other. Secret Wars, Secret Invasion, Armor Wars, the Miss Marvel, all the other She-Hulk, all the others are kind of new things. So even Super Loki, we're excited about those prospects. Whereas Falcon and Winter Soldier is just like, okay. Cool. I'm so excited. I can see what you're saying about it not being
Loki. When I saw the trailer for that pushed up higher, because at first I was like, I'm sort of done with Loki, and then I saw that trailer and I was just sort of like, DB Cooper.
All right. Well, we're gonna. Oh, I'm sorry, Darren. I'll let you close it out. Yeah,
I'm severely looking forward to Falcon and Winter Soldier because I'm a very big fan of Zemo, and now they're going to actually turn him into the Baron Zemo, more comic style thing. I'm just a bit sad that we won't get to see Steve take him on, but I'm very much looking forward to Falcon and Winter Soldier taking him on, and he's like been one of my absolute favorite villains of the MCU because he absolutely, with no superpowers, destroyed the Avengers completely. And so I'm very much looking forward to seeing what his knowledge and his cunning will bring, and how only 6 episodes in, we're going to be seeing apparently a really excellent show. I expect some very good things from it.
Yeah, I
Six
think
1
this
hour
show-
episodes at that. Full hours.
Yeah, I think this show is going to scratch that itch for those who have been craving the high level action. You know, but you know, I appreciate the variety that they're giving us in the MCU. But you know, they're just people that just want that, and it's okay. But we're gonna get it now, apparently. So I'm definitely looking forward to catching that. I will be, you know, of course, repeating my 3 a.m. watches. I'm excited. So yeah, I'm all on board, and you know, I definitely look forward to you know, more of the B.E.A.M streams with you guys, and as we, you know, talk about and unpack the issues of this next series. But of course, I'm looking forward to the behind the scenes next week of WandaVision. But then, yeah, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, certainly looking forward to it.
So I believe we also get Marvel Legends next week as well, I believe.
Yes, Marvel Legends as well. So we get to see the highlight reel of Bucky Barnes and you know, and the Falcon as well. So but yeah, thank you guys for joining us on this extra long B.E.A.M stream discussion of WandaVision. And you know, we certainly look forward to doing more of these and coming back for the premiere of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier in 2 weeks' time. All right. So thank you very much, and have a great day.
Peace.
Gotta go watch a show about a Boy Scout. See ya.